Hey everybody, thanks for clicking on this video. Today we're going to be working with finding coefficients of binomial expansions. If you want to follow along, the links to the companion worksheet are in the description below. Also, don't forget to click that subscribe button so you can stay up to date on all the videos that we have coming out from the channel. So let's get started. So here we have this expansion 2 plus x to the 12th. Now we really don't want to expand this whole thing out because there's going to be 13 different terms in this binomial expansion. But we don't actually have to do that. Instead, what we have to do is we just have to find the one term that has x to the 5th. Once we find that, then we'll just stop there. So we know that the first term, now I'm going to ignore the coefficients that are out front, and I'm just going to look at the first term is going to have 2 to the 12th. Then the next term is going to have 2 to the 11th with x to the 1st. So neither of those have what we want, so we have to keep going. So 2 is going to be to the 10th, and then we have x squared. Then we have 2 to the 9th, and then we have x cubed. And then we have 2 to the 8th, and that's x to the 4th. And then finally we have 2 to the 7th times x to the 5th. And there we go. There's the term we want. Now, I deliberately ignored the coefficients because unless you have a copy of Pascal's triangle handy, you probably don't know what these coefficients are. Now sure, based on the pattern that we have in previous videos, we know that the first coefficient is 1, that the second coefficient is 12, whatever that exponent is. But then after that, it gets a little difficult. So let me show you a quick way of figuring out what this coefficient is. So what we do is we take this exponent, which is 12 factorial. So we're going to take 12 factorial, and what we're going to do is we're going to divide by. Now what we look at is the number of terms that are in front of this. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So there are 5 terms ahead of this. And then we'd also ask how many terms are behind it. And that's going to be 7. Now one handy thing to remember is that these two numbers have to add up to 12, the numerator. So, get out my calculator. Calculator will tell us what this number is. So we take 12 factorial, and then we divide by the quantity 5 factorial times 7 factorial. Now I have to put parentheses so that the calculator knows to divide both the 5 and the 7 factorial. And what we get is 792. So that's the term we're interested in. However, that's not the final coefficient because we still have 2 to the 7th that we have to also multiply. So 792 times 2 to the 7th times x to the 5th. So on my calculator, I'll take 792 and multiply by 2 raised to the 7th power. And so that gives me 101,376 x to the 5th. So there is the coefficient that we're interested in. Now, looking at the next term, we're going to apply the same type of thinking. So here we have this expansion and we want x to the 4th times y cubed. So if we start out, our first term is going to be x to the 7th. Our second term is going to be x to the 6th times negative 3y. Well, we want x to the 4th, so we have to keep going. Then we have x to the 5th and minus 3y squared. Not yet. Then we have x to the 4th times negative 3y cubed. There's the term we want. So now we have to figure out what is this coefficient. So using the pattern that I used up above, we take this number 7 factorial divided by how many terms are in front? 1, 2, 3. 3 terms are in front of it, and there's going to be 4 terms behind it. So 7 factorial divided by 3 factorial times 4. factorial. And that gives me 35. So we have 35 out front times x squared, x to the fourth, times negative 3y cubed. So we have to take 35 and multiply that by negative 3 to the third power. And so that's going to give us negative 945 x to the fourth times y cubed. On the second page, here we have this expansion, x squared y. Now you often have problems like this because it kind of messes with your expectation, because you expect, well, we want x to the fourth, so we just take this to the fourth power. The problem is x is already squared. So if x is squared, then that means in order to get x to the fourth, that means this term has to be squared. And so that means negative y has to be raised to the fifth power. Now notice that you don't actually have to write out all the other terms that come before it and come after it. And so if you can identify what the powers will be to give you the term you want, you can just go ahead and do that. Now as far as the coefficient out in front, it's going to be 5 factorial over. Now one other way you can do this, and actually, my mistake, that shouldn't be a 5, that should be a 3, is the numbers in the denominator happen to be these two powers right here, 2 factorial and 3 factorial. So, let's see, 5 factorial divided by 2 factorial times 3 factorial. And we get 10 as the coefficient out front. And so we have 10, but don't forget that negative y to the third, because we're going to take negative 1, that's the coefficient, to the third power. So actually 10x squared times negative 1y to the third, and negative 1 to the third is negative 1. So when you multiply that by 10, you get negative 10x to the fourth y cubed. So actually there is no such term as x to the fourth y to the fourth. It's actually x to the fourth y cubed. Now in this last one, we want the expansion. Find the coefficient of the term with no variable. So let's write out what this might look like. So we're first going to have x to the sixth. Nope, there's a variable there. Then we're going to have x to the fifth times 1 over x squared. Nope, that will still have a variable. So in the next one, we have x to the fourth times 1 over x squared quantity squared. That's going to work for us because we're going to have x to the fourth. Now 1 over x squared is being squared, so that means it's going to be 1 over x to the fourth. So this is the term we want. So to get the coefficient out in front, this means we're going to take 6 factorial all over 4 factorial times 2 factorial. Again, matching these two. As well as you can say there are 2 terms in front and there are going to be 4 terms behind it. So on our calculator, we take 6 factorial divided by 2 factorial times 4 factorial. And we get 15. So that's 15 times x to the fourth times 1 over x squared squared. And that's going to be 1 over x to the fourth, so they will just cancel out, leaving us with 15. Thanks for watching. If you liked the video, give it a thumbs up. If you have suggestions or problems you want to see worked out, type a comment below. To support the channel, click the Patreon link to help keep this going. Thanks so much for watching, and remember, the best way to understand something is to do it.